Hello, my name's Paul Minikin, hearing aid audiologist and tech support at fmhearingsystems.co.uk, the UK's leading Phonak Roger equipment supplier. So today I'd like to talk to you about Phonak Roger transmitters. Phonak Roger systems are a group of devices designed to help improve the performance overall of hearing aids. So no matter what the quality and the experience you have with your hearing aids, the idea of a Phonak Roger system is to, if you like, to turbocharge the benefit that you get from your hearing aids. Typically with hearing aids, even with very well performing hearing aids, you might start to find that you struggle a little bit to hear people speaking at distance, in rooms where there's lots of reverberation, i.e. where there's lots of hard surfaces and there's a little bit of echo in the room, and particularly with things like background noise. Maybe also hearing audio devices like telephony, Zoom and Teams calls, and just generally listening to audio files, listening to the TV, all those sort of things Phonak Roger systems can help with. So a Phonak Roger transmitter is, if you like, the hub of a Phonak Roger system. I think we could class it as a primary transmitter. So this is what a Phonak Roger On looks like. At the moment it's sat in its base station. A base station is a charging pod, and it's also a means to connect up via cable to an audio device like a TV, a laptop computer, and any kind of audio device really. But basically, you would take the Roger On out of its charging station, and depending on how you use it, depends on how it interacts with the environment and what sort of benefit you get. There's an LCD display on the front here, and that indicates what's happening with the Roger On at any particular point in time. The Roger On automatically adjusts itself based on what's happening basically in the environment. So if you place the Roger On the table, the icon on the LCD screen at the front there is a circle, and the Roger On is working in an Omni mode. That's basically an all-round mode. The Roger On will work very well in small groups and in noise. If you get to more than about 6 or 7 people around the table, the device becomes less effective, because it's quite important for the way that it works to be able to give you the help, for the voice of the person that you need to hear to be close enough to the Roger On transmitter for it to work well. Okay, so when the Roger On is flat on the table, as I say, it's in Omni mode, and basically as people are speaking, it will pick up the strongest, loudest speech type sound that's close to the Roger On microphone, the Roger On transmitter. And in that way, basically, that when a person speaks, it enters the Roger On transmitter and then wirelessly transmits direct to your hearing instruments and helps you hear better. It's almost like that person that's whose voice you can hear, they've actually got up out of the chair and actually stood right next to your ear, and they're talking direct into your ear. And that is helping to overcome the distance aspect, the noise, and any reverberation in the noise. It works pretty well. If that room noise gets pretty excessive, and even with the Roger On working as well as it can work, you need a little bit of extra help. You can raise the Roger On off the table. You just hold it in your hand and point it generally in the rough direction of the person or the people that you want to particularly hear, and the icon on the screen changes to, rather from a circle, it changes to a pizza slice. So basically it's like a fairly wide torch beam, and it picks up the people that are sitting or standing in the direction that the Roger On is pointing. The more vertically you hold it, the more directional it becomes, the more pinpoint it becomes. So much so that when you pop the Roger On onto a lapel, it goes into a super directional mode, presenter mode, and it becomes very, very focused on the person that is speaking at the expense of it can be a very noisy room and you can be quite a distance away from that person, but because it's picking up very strongly on the voice of the person that you want to hear and then wisely sending it straight to your hearing aids, you can be quite a distance away and in a very noisy room and still be able to hear quite quickly. It does all automatically. The microphones in the Roger-On behave differently based on how you hold it. It's got an accelerometer built into it, a little bit like with a mobile phone, where if you turn the mobile phone sideways, it goes into landscape mode, and then you turn it round and it goes into portrait mode. I suppose it's similar technology to that, really. Okay, you can actually force the Roger-On transmitter to go into a manual microphone mode. You see the button on the front there. You can press that, and that will force the Roger-On to go into a specific microphone mode. Most people don't need to do that, but there might be specific environments where you want the Roger-On transmitter to be super directional but still be handheld. You know, that's a possibility. But as I say, most people don't really bother with that. They've either got the Roger-On on the table or in the hand or on the lapel, and they just let it do what it wants to do, and it actually works very well. Okay, so that's the Roger-On transmitter. We've also got a clip-on mic. We don't supply a lot of clip-on mics, to be honest, but basically it does the same as the Roger-On, but only works in lapel mode. It's a lower cost device and works very well in one-to-one situations. You clip it to the lapel mic there, and it works pretty much the same as a Roger-On, but only in a one-to-one situation. Okay, there are certain applications where that would be useful, working with a clip-on mic and a Roger-On. The Roger-On being the primary transmitter and the clip-on mic being an additional help to whatever the Roger-On is doing. So I mentioned earlier, the Roger-On transmitter is very good for smaller groups and noise, but there are certain situations where you might find somebody working in on a large table on some kind of committee or you know, in corporate life, on a large table where the tables are bigger than 6 or 7 people around a table. It might be 8 to 15 people around a table perhaps, and then the distances that people are from the Roger-On transmitter, from that microphone, are a little bit too great for the Roger-On to be working effectively. So then you start to think about a Roger table mic. It's a very good device for larger tables. You can use a Roger table mic in conjunction with a Roger-On, but pretty much what you would do is you would use a table mic by itself. You wouldn't bother too much with the Roger-On and just use the table mic for the large table. It worked really, really well. Placed in the middle of the table, it will pick up everybody's voices up to a certain size of table and transmit everybody's voices wirelessly direct into your ears to overcome the distance reverberation and background noise, if you like. Okay, but where you might use the two in conjunction with each other is the table mic is in the middle of the table, and then the Roger-On is in presenter mode, in super directional mode, on the main person's lapel, and that main person might be walking across to the other side of the room with the back to you as a hearing aid wearer, writing things on a whiteboard, things like that. You'll still be able to hear them and all the people on the table around you. If the table is bigger, let's just say 15 to 25 people, you might use a twin pack of table mics. Also, with the table mics, you've got a remote control. It's not particularly useful, really, but it does have a couple of useful features there. It's got a mute, and also you can adjust the table mics so that they work closer to the sound sources they're trying to pick up, or to a wider area. Okay, just with this little button here. Okay, and these are the main Roger transmitters that we supply at FM Hearing Systems. I hope that was helpful for you. Please watch the next video, which explains Phonak Roger receivers and how they work with the transmitters. Thank you.